Hey guys, welcome to the Prepco sessions on GMAT Prep. We're going to be covering all sections rather, the verbal, quant, even the essays. These particular sessions right now is the verbal ability series. We're going to be within this covering all topics: reading comprehension, sentence correction, and critical reasoning. Today we're starting with the basics of sentence correction, the basics of grammar. And today's session is a bit of theory. It's the parts of speech. Very, very, very important. You don't need to remember what is what. Nobody's asking you definitions on the exam. But you do need to go so we can move ahead. Quick class, let's go. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Prepco series on English. This is a chapter that's basically the most boring session of the entire thing. Seriously. Parts of speech, the basics, what's a noun, what's an adjective, what's an adverb. It's necessary because, like I've said before, also, there's no theory tests here. You're doing test prep for all these exams for CAT, for GMAT, for CLAT, for BBS. There is no theory that's being tested. Nobody is ever going to ask you what is an adjective and what are the six different kinds of adjectives. What are the six common different kinds of pronouns? No one's going to ask you that. But you do need to know what pronouns are, how they work, and some examples of the different kinds. So that when you come across them in a sentence, you know how to use them. Having said that, this is a really, really boring lesson. Yes. It's going to be about 20 minutes. It's necessary. And we're going to take a lot of examples and see how quickly we can get it clearly done and over with. Wow, what a great ad for my lesson, huh? It's boring. Parts of speech. There's only so much you can do with it. It forms the basis for the coming few chapters. So that's the important part. And the coming few chapters are fun. So let's start. What are parts of speech? And we start with what's a sentence? Because I'll tell you why this is important after this slide. A sentence at its very basics talks about an action being performed. You can't have a sentence without a subject and a verb. Somebody doing something or something being done to somebody or something. I ran is a valid sentence. It's also how the Americans pronounce Iran, but let's not go there. I is the subject of the sentence. In this case, the person or the thing performing the action, and ran is the action being performed. He ate food. Now you're also introducing another element, which is what is being, there's something on whom or on which an action is being performed. So I ran, I'm doing an action. He ate is a valid sentence. What did he eat? He ate food. So subject, the person performing the action, he. Verb, the action being performed, ate. Object, the person or thing upon whom the action is being performed, is food in this case. So at your very basic, your sentence is subject, verb, object. We'll come to passive voice later where this changes. But remember this, subject, verb, object. That's your basic form of the sentence. Why is this important to know? Because sometimes they'll give you sentences that are 20, 25, 30 words long. And it'll be very confusing. It'll have long words thrown in. It'll have massively complicated phrases thrown in. But the basic structure of the sentence, subject, verb, object. So you have to remove all the other elements, pick them out, throw them away, and you're left with the basics. And that's when you figure out what the sentence actually is trying to convey. Everything else is just more descriptions. He slowly ate food. He ate food which had been prepared by blah 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 blah. The basic sentence is he ate food. That's where you look for errors first. So I ran a half marathon on Tuesday. You're adding elements. He ate food quickly while sitting in the living room. Because I was running short of time and was unaware of the change in train timings, I spent half an hour in total panic running from platform to platform. The basic sentence could be I spent half an hour running. Then you add on elements. I spent half an hour in total panic running. I spent half an hour in total panic running from platform to platform, etc., 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 etc. So that's a sentence: subject, verb, object, and then you keep adding on elements to add to add more information about elements of the sentence. I ate a cookie, and you don't actually need the object in the sentence. I ate. That's fine. A cookie was eaten. Perfectly valid sentence. You're not talking about who is eating the cookie. However, there's one difference here. This is now passive voice. How do you differentiate between them? The focus of the sentence, the subject of the sentence, is now the thing or person upon whom the action is being performed. I ate a cookie. The subject, which is coming first. The focus is I. I am doing something. What am I doing? I'm eating. A cookie is secondary. It's more information about what I'm eating. However, if I'm writing a paragraph on the cookie was made by my friend, it was a coconut cookie, it was this, there was sugar added to it, I ate the cookie. No, it's actually better form to then say the cookie this, the cookie that, the cookie was eaten by me. Because the focus of the paragraph, the context revolves around the cookie. So that's when you use passive voice. Now, passive voice also, this is complicated. It also follows the same format: subject, verb, object. In fact, even I used to get confused about this. I thought that if you change from I ate a cookie to a cookie was eaten by me, the sentence is actually now object, verb, subject. Because the cookie is the object of the sentence, right? No. You are using passive voice. You're switching from I ate a cookie to a cookie was eaten by me. Only if you want the subject of the sentence to be the cookie. If you want the focus of the sentence to be the cookie. In which case, I am now secondary to the sentence. The focus is on the cookie. I am now secondary, even though I'm performing the action. I am now the object, or I as a word is now the object of the sentence and changes from I to me, which is the object form of that particular pronoun. So the sentence structure is always subject, verb, object. Passive voice should be used in very limited circumstances when there's a broader paragraph, there's a broader context, and the focus is on the thing or person upon whom the action is being performed. If the sentence is, the paragraph is I did this, I did that, I ran, then I got home, I ate a cookie. That's fine. You do not change that. If the paragraph is the cookie was made by my friend, the cookie was this, the cookie was that, the cookie was made of coconuts and milk and flour and whatever goes into cookies. I am not a very good cook. The cookie was eaten by me. The cookie then becomes a subject. So keep that in mind when you're composing the sentence. If there is no broader context, if there's just a sentence, always prefer active voice. It's simpler, it's shorter, it's fewer words, it gets the point across more clearly. We see passive voice very commonly in bureaucratic language. The letter has been drafted and it has been left on the table of the Prime Minister. You'll notice you're not even talking about the person performing the action here. People prefer bureaucratic language because they think it sounds fancier. No, this is not the 1970s, 1980s, whatever. The purpose of the purpose of a sentence, the purpose of writing, the purpose of speaking is to communicate a message, is to get a particular point across. You don't get that point across by making it much more difficult for your audience to understand what you're saying. And you don't get away by saying it's flowery language or better, whatever. No, it's not. Keep your sentences short and simple. And by definition, a shorter sentence is one which has fewer words. Active voice will almost certainly have fewer words, and it will be easier to understand for your reader. So stick to active voice unless the paragraph or the context demands it. So if in sentence correction you come across 2 options which are wrong out of the 5, or 3 options which are wrong, one is active, one is passive, prefer the active. Now, what are the actual parts of speech? Once again, I will reiterate, you're not going to be asked what's an interjection, what's a verb. There are no definitions being questioned. You just need to know these so that if you come across them in a sentence, you know what the rules are, you know how to deal with them. So if you look at the sentence, good Lord, that is an interjection. What is an interjection? It's an exclamation. Alas, oh God, sigh. Not very common, used in rather old world language. That's what they are. Look, you're being asked to perform an action. That is a verb. At that cute octopus. Octopus is a noun. Cute is describing the octopus. We'll come to these definitions anyhow, individually. So cute is describing an octopus. It's an adjective. Sitting silently. You are defining the act of, you're describing the act of sitting. How is he sitting? He or she. It's an adverb. On the table. Where is the octopus sitting? There is a table. The octopus is sitting on it. You are basically describing the relationship between the table and the octopus. This is a preposition. On the table, but don't point at it. But is a conjunction. It is combining 2 parts of the sentence. And, but, if. These are the common conjunctions. Don't point at it. You could say, look at the cute octopus sitting silently on the table, but don't point at the octopus. The octopus gets nervous if you point at the octopus, and the octopus starts reacting violently. You don't need to keep repeating that. Simplify and shorten the sentence. Use pronouns. It is a pronoun referring to the octopus. Let's go deeper into these parts of speech individually. Nouns are not very complicated. Any name, anything. A table is a common noun. My name is Vineet. Vineet is a proper noun. You already know all this. We're not going to spend time. The important part to know is, and where they confuse you, is 2 things. Even abstract nouns aren't very complicated. They're just basically intangible things that you can't see or physically touch. Freedom. As a concept, it makes sense. Victimhood. As a concept, it makes sense. But you can't touch or see freedom. You can experience it. All words ending in hood need not necessarily be abstract. Let me think of an example. Neighborhood. You can see a neighborhood. You can live in a neighborhood. Collective nouns can be confusing because of what verb form to use, singular or plural. The college has reopened. College is a collective noun. School, committee. The committee has decided what to do. But the members of the committee are undecided. Members, plural, are. We're going to take on subject and verb agreement and parallelism in a separate class altogether, in a separate video later. For now, just keep in mind that collective nouns are a common area of confusion. Countable and uncountable nouns are a bigger source of confusion. Why? Very simply, you need to know where to use much, where to use many. There is too much rice on my plate. You won't say too many rice. You could say too many grains of rice. Grains are individually countable. 3 grains or 3,000 grains. Of course, you won't want to spend your day counting 3,000 grains of rice. but theoretically it's possible. So grains of rice are countable. You can't say, I will have 3 rice. You could say, I will have 3 kgs of rice. But then again, kgs is countable. Rice is not. So there are too many kgs of rice, or too many bags of rice, or too many sacks of rice in this go down. But you can't say there is too many rice or there are too many rice. That's wrong. There is too much rice. It is still singular. You won't say there are too much rice, or definitely not there are too much rices. Very wrong. So keep in mind, countable and uncountable nouns are where they can confuse you. Verbs aren't very complicated either. Every sentence exists to define an action. The verb defines the action. Can you have a sentence without a verb? Something like, let's say, okay. Can you do this please? Okay. So that's also in a sense a shortened sentence. Okay, I can do this. Or that is okay. Can you do this? Yes. Yes, that is fine. But other than these couple of exceptions, you can't have a sentence without a verb. A sentence exists to define an action. So you need a subject and a verb, like we discussed. Now, when you throw in nouns and verbs, or pronouns and verbs, that's when things get complicated. Because subjects and verbs have to agree, like we were discussing. Subject and verb agreement is going to be a separate video. But for now, just keep in mind they have to agree. And there are tons of cases where this gets complicated. She, he, or I are going to the festival. Or she, he, or I am going to the festival. Yeah, she, he, or I am going to the festival is the right answer here. Basically, the last pronoun that fits in defines what the verb form is going to be. Versus if you just say she, he, and I are, then it's just 3 people, plural, very clearly. There's no doubt here. That's a plural. Definitely you use the plural verb form, are. So we're going to discuss this in a separate session altogether. But keep in mind that verbs and pronouns can cause a lot of confusion. Pronouns can definitely in multiple ways cause confusion. There's a bunch of types. Let's discuss them quickly. Sorry, I said 6 types. There are 8 common types. My maths is very poor. So nobody's going to ask you define interrogative pronouns. You're doing multiple choice tests. They're just going to give you in sentence correction 4 different sentences, one of which is correct, the others have errors. So you need to figure out how to tackle them. That's why you need to know these. Demonstrative pronouns, think of it as you're pointing towards something. This book, that table. I need to keep my hand inside when I'm pointing. That table, those people, these people. That's a demonstrative pronoun when you're pointing towards something. A personal pronoun, he, her, they. Simple enough. Or the object form. So, he read the book, or I told him. So, he, her, they, or the object form is him, also her. Well, what am I saying? He, she, and they are the subject forms, and him, her, and them are the object forms. Interrogative pronouns: who, what, when, where, how, why, whom, which. These are interrogative pronouns when you're asking a question about them. Indefinite pronouns: none of them, several people, any of them. When you're sort of trying to talk about a number but you don't have a number, you can't use a number. None is a clear one. 0. Possessive pronouns: her book, this book is hers. His book, this book is his. Relative pronouns: when you're talking about a relationship, this is the table that I was talking about. This is the what's the difference between that and which? When do you use that? When do you use which? And we'll also then come to when do you use who and whom, also a common source of confusion. Who and whom is actually a simpler problem to solve once you know what it's about. Let's discuss which and that for a second. This is the table that I was talking about versus this is the table which I was talking about. Which would you prefer here and why? You will use that here. This is the table that I was talking about. Why? Because the meaning, the description of the table is central to the sentence itself. This is the table is a very different sentence from this is the table that I was talking about. It's much more specific. It's the reason for the existence of the sentence to describe a particular table, which is used when you're adding more information. So let's say we had breakfast sitting on these chairs, comma, which I had bought last Sunday from Sarojini Nagar. Are there chairs in Sarojini Nagar or just clothes? I don't know. Never mind. So, do you see what I'm saying? This is the table that I was talking about versus we were having breakfast sitting on those chairs, which I had bought last week in Sarojini Nagar. Here, in the second sentence, we were having breakfast sitting on those chairs is a complete sentence and is the focus of the sentence. The subject, verb, object form belongs here. And then you decide to add more information about these chairs, comma, which I had decided to, which I had bought in Sarojini Nagar last week. So the thumb rule is that is used when that description is core to the sentence, which is used when you're just adding additional information about something, which is also much more likely to fall after a comma, which actually makes me feel that punctuation should be a separate class in itself. We'll do a separate video on that. Won't be very long, but it's important because comma use, semicolon use, colon use can get complicated. I'll just leave that there for now. Who and whom? Very simply, who is when you're replacing a subject form of a word. Whom is when you're replacing the object form of a word. He told me. The question would be who told you, not whom told you. Versus I told him. The question would be whom did you tell? You're replacing him, so not who did you tell. Whom did you tell? So it's as simple as that. Think of what you're replacing. You will use who when you're replacing the subject form and whom when you're replacing the object form. It is actually as clear-cut as that. No exceptions. I should never say no exceptions. There are always exceptions, but yeah, 99%. This is the rule you'll follow. The last two categories are the same words, but depending on usage. Reflexive. So this is when. So I told myself not to worry. I cooked for myself. What's happening here? Why aren't we saying I told me not to worry? When your subject and object are the same, he booked himself a flight. When your subject and object are the same, that's when you use himself, myself, themselves. Intensive pronouns, same words, different usage. I did the work myself. The Prime Minister himself spoke about it. This is when you're adding emphasis. The Prime Minister spoke about it versus the Prime Minister himself spoke about it. You are doing this to add emphasis to something. So that makes it intensive. I did the work myself versus I did the work. The meaning is the same except you're stressing on the fact, or I am stressing on the fact that I did it myself. So these are the types of pronouns. We'll do a bunch of examples in a later class. But these are the 8 categories. Again, nobody's going to ask you to remember these categories, but they're good to know. Things to watch out for. First, second, and third person. He told me versus he told I. I told him. What's second person? You. I told you. You is the same. Look, so the word you is the same in first person and second person. You told me versus I told you. But I told you versus you told me. I becomes me. So keep first, second, and third person in mind. Subject and object form. Like we discussed, singular pronouns. Each, everyone / everything, either or neither, whoever or whomever. What is happening, not what are happening. Each of these is singular. Each of these is singular, not each of these are singular. Everyone is going, everything is happening simultaneously, not everyone are going. Either of us is going, even though it follows the word us. Neither of us is going. Whoever is going to decide what happens. What is happening, not what are happening. Having said that, okay, let's take another example. What are... Can there be a word after this? Can there be a valid sentence after this? What are? Obviously, what are happening is wrong, like we discussed. But what are you doing? Why is this correct? Why not what is you doing? Think about that for like 10 seconds. Because who is performing the action? In the sentence, you. So how would you answer this question? You are doing something, right? So the are here, the verb form, depends on you, not on what. What is happening? Something is happening. The verb form depends on the word what, so it's singular. So it comes with practice. It's tricky in the beginning, but and not too much practice. Practice about 50-60 sentences and you're through. You're set. Subject verb agreement, same thing. Who or whom, like we discussed, subject or object form, depends on what you're replacing. If you're replacing the subject, use who. If you're replacing the object, use whom. Pronoun ambiguity. Which noun is a pronoun referring to? This is actually a very common problem. Ram was supposed to meet Sham at 5. Why am I using names from the 1970s? I don't know any Shams, sorry. Ram was supposed to meet Sham at 5, but he didn't turn up. Who is he? You can't assume that the pronoun that is closer or the noun that is closer to the pronoun is the right answer here. You can't assume that. This sentence is plain wrong. The purpose of a sentence is to communicate. This sentence is not communicating effectively. So this sentence is just wrong. Adjectives and adverbs. Adjectives modify / describe nouns and pronouns. You could say this is a book. If you want to add more information about the book, you say this is a good book. The word good is describing the book. It's an adjective. Adverbs modify / describe verbs. They describe adjectives and they describe other adverbs. This sounds complicated, but with an example it becomes very easy to understand. So he writes. That's a valid sentence. But you want to say, how does he write? How is his writing? He writes well. His writing is good or he writes well. So you're adding more information about the quality of his writing, the kind of his writing. This is an adverb talking or describing the verb, giving more information about the verb. He writes well. Look at the second example. He writes really well. The word really here is not has nothing to do with how he writes. It has everything to do with how good his writing is. It's giving more information about the word well. He writes really well. Really belongs with well. Well is an adverb. Here, your adverb really is describing, modifying another adverb well. Third example, you'd said this is a good book. How good is it? This is a really good book. Really is adding more information, not about the book, but about how good it is. So the adverb is modifying the adjective. You've been using these all your life. This is me just describing what you've been doing. So you know the rules, basically. Prepositions, that's a huge list of words. We don't need to discuss all of them. Basically, they define a relationship between a noun and a pronoun and other parts of the sentence. Meet me. Meet me when? Meet me at 2. So this is describing the relationship between 2 p.m. or 2 a.m., hopefully not, and meeting me. It's the bridge, basically. The book, there is a book and there is a table. Where is the book? The book is on the table. It's a relationship, a position. It's giving you more information about that. He seems like he's sad. This is a huge list. You can just pause the video and go through this list once. Actually, I would recommend you do that. About, above, across, after, against. Did I actually put this? I actually put this list in alphabetical order. I'm amazed at myself right now. So yeah, just pause the video right now. Just go through this list. You're not memorizing words. You don't need to do that. This is just so you know that these words that you've been using all these years, and they're pretty common. They're all very common words. You know what they are. Things to watch out for: in versus into. In the house versus he is in the house versus he is going into the house. So keep this in mind. Should off and could off. I don't know why this is taken off in common internet usage, at least. This is wrong. Should have and could have is the right answer. Should off and could off. I've never really seen this when people are talking, but when people are writing, yes, it's become pretty common. Don't ever use this, please. Like versus such as. He seems like he's sad. You won't say he seems such as he's sad. Versus there are many reasons to go there, such as the fact that it's a big venue, such as it's got a lot of popular items and things on sale, such as everybody is socially distant. I don't know when you're watching this video, but right now the pandemic is still going on. So, like is used when you're talking about similarity. Such as is used when you're using examples, when you're giving examples or giving particular reasons. So these are the things to watch out for. And actually, when we're talking about things to watch out for, I should go back for a second to pronouns. The word myself. This is important. You never start a sentence with myself Vineet or myself, going back to my 70s examples, myself Ram, myself Sham. Please don't do that. Please don't ever start an interview and if someone asks you, talk about yourself or tell us more about yourself, you don't say myself Vineet. That is wrong usage. I am. That's what you use. Conjunctions and interjections, finally. Conjunctions link words, phrases and sentences, and he's going there and he's planning to write a book. But is when you're countering something. He seems healthy, but actually he's gone through a lot. With self-explanatory, although. Again, when you're saying something, but now you're going to counter that with something that should, you're not necessarily putting conditions, but you're saying, things look optimistic. They might not be. Finally, interjections. They just convey emotion. Good Lord, what's been going on here? Oh my God, alas. not very common these days. You should know. So that's the class on parts of speech. Sorry, I said 20 minutes. It's been going on for 35. Boring class. Now we're done. Everything else from now on is going to be about actual usage and very little about theory. Any questions about these? Any comments? Write a comment. I'll be answering everything that I see there every couple of days. And yeah, if you like the video, click like on it. YouTube has an algorithm that will throw this video up in more people's feed if people are liking it. And we're going to be putting out many more videos, all of English, and depending on the exam, videos on law for CLAT, business, basic business reasoning for BBS exams, maths of course for CLAT, BBS, GMAT, CAT, and general knowledge, of course, how to tackle that section. So we're going to be putting up a lot more videos, so subscribe to the channel, and very selfish reason, it helps us also. YouTube will start monetizing our channel, allow us to make money from ads if you subscribe. So please be nice. And see you soon for the next video. Next we'll be talking about modifiers, and we've already done a session on verbal ability for CLAT so far, and we'll put the link in the notes. Thanks guys, see you soon.